thinking about retirement. I saw where Buzz Retirement Garage, he said, talking about maybe going back to work a little bit. And one of the other videos, uh, video podcasters about retirement kind of responded to that and said that he thinks retirement is when you cease work completely. And I've never really had a desire to cease work completely. I did see an opportunity when I turned 67. I see the opportunity because of Social Security, my wife and I being on Social Security, and our Social Security, when you take into consideration our Social Security and then what we have in retirement and savings, which isn't a huge amount, but between Social Security, retirement, and savings, we do have enough to live, to survive, to live. But I don't want to retire. I call it retreading. I don't want to retire. I just want to repurpose myself, retread myself a little bit, and spend my time doing stuff that that I also think is important, that I think has value, especially into the future. But it's probably not something that I'm going to be able to earn a full-time living on. And so, but I don't need to earn a full-time living on it. Because I can basically make enough money, earn enough money from my Social Security and my wife's ours combined, that we can survive pretty well. And then also because my son is the one who bought the property that we're building the house. I'm paying for my own house to build it, but my son owns the property, and because of that, us working together, he and I are kind of collaborating life right now, and joining our economies together. To make this a functioning piece of property, the McKenzie Mountain. And so we're working together with that. And so it gives me an opportunity to spend time doing some things that I see value in, but I'm probably not going to be able to earn a full-time income doing. One of those is my writing, and whether I write any new Bible study books or not, I'm not sure. But I do know that because I've written a little over 100 of them, they're on Amazon. But I would like to take the time to edit them, spend more time editing them, and I've published a little more than 100 of them. I have at least 100 more after 42 years of pastoring and preaching, and the way that I prepared and studied for those, I have at least 100 more that I can publish. But they will require a considerable amount of editing. Once I figured out that there is such a thing as electronic books, and there was the opportunity to self-publish, which didn't exist when I started the ministry in the 80s through the 90s, really that didn't exist. Amazon came along. I don't remember what year Amazon started, but I do remember when Amazon came on, and especially when the Kindle electronic book readers. And I recognized right away that this is going to be the future. It's going to be and I do believe books, hardbound, paperback, a real book in your hand is going to always have value, and it's going to have a place. But I could see that the future is going to be about electronic books, and it took me a while to be able to figure out how to get involved in it, but I did eventually figure out. I started out with something called Lulu, printing my books in an electronic form on Lulu, and you also had the opportunity for paperback there, and then transitioned from Lulu to Amazon. The transition kind of gets a little bit rough because some of my books were on Lulu and some of them were on Amazon, and then some of them were on Lulu and Amazon. And now I still have some on Lulu, but I don't even go there anymore. So there's that, should I take them off? Should I retire those books, or, what's the word for it? Archive those books on Lulu? Haven't ever done that. And I'm not positive. I might still have some books that are on Lulu that are not on Amazon yet. I don't know those things, but I have my books. Just for fun. Now those are Bible study books, and then just for fun, whether, I don't know if this has value or not, but some value, there is value in just having something that works in your brain and your mind. And so then I got the idea of these short story type historical fiction books that I've outlined really already from pre-American Revolution, War for Independence, all the way through Neil Armstrong's Walk on the Moon. I've got them outlined, and a couple of them I've got started. Maybe I'd want to redo those a little bit, but so I think there's some value even for my mind just to be working on those. One of the things I would like to be able to do, because the books that I have on Amazon, I would like to spend more time. I would like to go through the editing process. Once I figured out that I did have an opportunity for publishing, self-publishing, then I began spending a little bit more time as I prepared my messages, because I've always done this. As I prepared messages, I prepared them in such a way that they could eventually become books, published as books. But once I figured out that I had that electronic publishing was available, self-publishing was available, then I began working a little harder on editing, doing my own self-editing before preaching. Because when you preach, what I do is you want to get down what God gives you, and then preaching, you're not going to read a manuscript when you're preaching. You use the headings and the bullet points, and then I would write out my manuscript because I wanted it to be a book at some point. But as I'm preaching, what I'm doing is I'm looking at my headings and my bullet points and those sorts of things. And so then all of a sudden, I decided I needed to spend more time on what's between the headings and the bullet points to make sure that I've got that cleaned up as much as possible. So you're never going to get it perfect, but as much as possible without taking too much time out of the sermon preparation and and the pastoral responsibilities. Take enough time to make sure that it's at least readable, legible, maybe not perfect grammar, perfect punctuation, perfect composition, but understandable. And I was successful in some cases and not in others. I had some other people have helped over the years to edit my work, and few of them, and almost always they're going to come back at some point and say, all right, I'm looking at a paragraph and I've got no idea what that paragraph says. And sometimes I look at it and say, I don't either. We're going to need to rewrite this because I don't know what it says either. But because I'm not looking at those when I'm preaching, I'm just, I'm looking at the headings and so forth and the bullet points. Anyway, so I've got lots and lots of material that sermons that were written in manuscript form so that they could become books, but they would need lots and lots of editing. I've got, for the first 10 years that I preached, I didn't use computers or typing, or even a typewriter. I hand wrote my sermon outlines, and I did them in manuscript form, but they're all handwritten. And so I've got, I don't even know, there would, if I was to make them into books, that'd probably be 100 books in there at least, and maybe more than that. When you compile sermons together to form the content, the substance of a book, there's probably at least 100 and maybe more than that in there. But that's all handwritten in my sloppy, as I'm getting ready to preach type of note-taking handwriting, which is, now that it's been, the last time I wrote a sermon by hand was like 1991, so I probably can't read those. And so those would be a real challenge to do that. But I want to go through the ones that I've already got on Amazon. And now I've never been able to pay because I don't charge. I don't want to sell my books for a fortune. I don't want to mark them up. I want to have them where they're in the same price range that a typical book that you'd get would cost. If you went down to Barnes and Noble and you wanted to buy a novel, you might be able to get that novel for under $10. And I want to make sure that my books are all in the same price as whatever you'd get if you're going to go to a store where you've got a book that's been commercially published, and you're going to be able to buy it for that $5 to $10 or $12 range. I want to keep my books in that. Well, if I hire editors and all of that, that's going to mess that up. But now, because of AI, where I think AI can really be valuable for me is in that editing process. It's not, I've been trying it, and it is a time-consuming deal. But I figured out editing is anyway. Anytime I've had people come in to help me edit, that is a major process to get the editing done. So that is another thing I would like to be able to do in this retreading era stage of my life, is just to go through and work each of those books through a process with AI to edit and clean them up and polish them in every way that I possibly can. Maybe change the covers, the book covers a little bit, and those sorts of things. That's an area that I feel like I can be used in this stage in my life, working on those books. Um, I'd like to spend time. I call it being an ambassador of encouragement. And the church that my son pastors here in Republic, that I am now a member of, has agreed, and they have commissioned my wife and I to be their ambassadors of encouragement, which essentially means we want to be able to do it without cost to churches and pastors. But essentially what it means is just going. We want to be able to pack up anytime we need to, and head to a church and just hang out there with the wild. I don't want to preach. It's not that I need to preach or anything. I will if I'm asked, and I have several preaching meetings scheduled this month. I'm going to be in Natchez next Thursday and Friday, and I'm going to be in what's the town? Not Newport. McMinnville, Oregon, in the middle of the month. I'm going to be in Plains, Montana, the first part of June. I'm going to be in Bethany, Oklahoma, in the middle of July. And so I do have preaching meetings scheduled. I've got a meeting scheduled actually out of country in the Middle East, in a restricted access nation. And I'm not going to go there to preach. I'm actually just going there to just try to be an encouragement. And we've got some things scheduled like that. But I want to be able to just show up at a church unannounced, listen to a preacher, bring his message to his people, and amen him and encourage him and agree with him as he's preaching the Word of God. Maybe take he and his family out to eat, and if he's got young kids, spend some time, encouraging and being a blessing to those kids. That's the kind of thing that I'd like to be able to do as well. Those sorts of things. Those are the things I'd like to be able to do.